Welcome everyone to the Mayor and Town Council meeting. It is Monday, April 11th, 2022. We will begin this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence, please. Thanks, everyone. All right, as I begin every meeting, I will begin this evening asking if there are any public comments from those who are in house this evening, which happens to be, at this point, only staff. So welcome, staff. So we'll move on to our consent agenda, which includes the minutes from our March 28th, 2022 meeting, as well as the appointment of Dominic Caparuccini, which I worked on many times saying his name this afternoon. We're appointing Dominic to a 3-year term to Sykesville Parks and Recreation Commission. His term will expire in April of 2025. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by President Carter, seconded by Councilman Dyer, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that's everyone, so I won't ask if there are any nays. Our first item of new business is to consider, discuss, and act upon the American Rescue Plan Act funding allocations. And a little background on that is that staff is recommending to us that the first allocations of the ARPA funding, we received, as in the town received, our first allotment of ARPA funding in June 2021. This funding came with limited guidance on how the funding could be used, and so it was decided at that time to wait until further information would be available. We've received that additional guidance now with the Treasury Department's final rule and several associated training sessions. With this new information, staff is recommending making our initial allocation of the ARPA funding, better known as the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, through the Government Services category, which would include the establishment of a premium pay policy for staff, the expansion of the facade improvement program, which is a program through the State Department of Housing and Community Development in fiscal year 2022, and a reimbursement to the Downtown Sykesville Connection for COVID-related expenses during the 2021 Beer Festival. Last comment here is, if approved, the funding would be shown in the end of year budget revision, which we'll all be getting soon. And all federal reporting will be done through the Treasury Department per the requirements of the Act. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a couple questions in reference to the premium pay. In the staff notes, it said it was a COVID-19 premium pay policy. Is it only limited to COVID-19? And when does COVID-19 end? Are there any thoughts in reference to how all of that will play itself out? Because one could argue it's still going on now.
Yes.
True, and again, the reason that language was in there is because it's basically an extension of the hazard pay policy that we established during the pandemic. If we want to remove that reference, I imagine we can, but yeah, that's the reason.
The two are different to me. One, I'm honestly fine with either one, but when we say COVID-19 premium pay policy, it makes it look like it's just a part of COVID-19, and I think it's going to go to endemic, and we'll always have it. So I guess my suggestion would be just to remove that off. And it's not on this document, but it's on the other staff notes document, and it's just a little bit confusing.
It is in the policy itself, so we can correct that.
Okay.
And Mayor, if you don't mind, there is actually one other correction I want to make. I did realize that in the policy itself, it talks about the end time for the policy.
Yes.
Was at the end of calendar year 2024. That should be 2023.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any more questions for staff before I ask for a motion?
So just come on. So is this going on right now, Joe? This is part of that hazard pay that we're still paying out. Is that correct?
Well, that ended in 2020, at the end of 2020. So this would basically just be a continuation of that type of policy.
Okay, and it's going to be back
Yes.
Pay also?
Retroactive, so again, it'll include calendar year 2021 through the end of calendar year 2023.
Okay. And this will not affect any of the, I just want to make sure this is just a lump payment off the side. It doesn't affect any salary.
But it doesn't affect any salary increases. It's a
That's what I
lump.
thought. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So then the only other question I had was in reference to the and I know this is probably the numbers that we came up with before, but I just thought that $1,000 for full-time personnel and $500 for part-time personnel wasn't enough of a delta. That was me. And so I thought that, like, I don't know if, maybe I should know this, but I don't know it. With our part-time personnel, I mean, is it just half time? Is it they're working 20 hours? Is it seemed to me that a full-time person should get more than what's on here. And I saw the police department was at the 4,000. I was fine with that. But with the full-time personnel, I mean, they're going to be interacting with the public, maybe a little less, although it's arguable whether or not how much less it is, depending on the public's need to enter into the townhouse.
Yeah.
So I don't know what other people think about that, but I'm open to a higher amount than the 1,000.
And again, the ratio was set because that was the original hazard pay policy that we established. It was basically that same ratio. Obviously, I don't think anybody's going to argue if you want to increase it. So.
So no motion's been made, I don't think, right?
No, you could make a motion with any way you'd like to, Chairman.
Well, before you make the motion, what are you thinking about? Like what?
2. I was thinking 2. So I don't know if I'm okay with another number, but a little bit higher than this 1,000. And I was thinking 2. We split the difference between what the police officers are getting and this, and that's where I was kind of leaning towards.
So, Joe, the part-time personnel, like, is there people that can work 32 hours a week, 10 hours a week? I mean, what?
Yeah, so again, basically the part-time personnel are museum curator and the post office. I believe that's it. 'Cause we don't have any part-time folks with public works at this time. At the post office, they kind of vary as far as how many hours each of them work. And at the museum, I think she's capped at how many hours per pay period?
24 hours a week, so 48 hours per pay period.
So is it,
Slightly more than just exactly half time.
so is it, you said two things, and I think you meant both of them, but are you more concerned, Councilman Schofield, are you more concerned about the delta between the part-time and the full-time when somebody could be at 32 hours, just 8 hours less than a full-timer and only get half? Or are you more concerned that you want the full-time staff to receive greater than 1,000?
So that's a good question. I'm more concerned to see the full-time staff get more than the 1,000. I'm fine with keeping the 500 for the part-time folks. I would like to see the 1,000 be increased, and I'd like it to be increased if I just put it out there up to 2,000. That's what I would like to see.
I like the idea of going up to 2, but I ask, if local government does the same thing with federal government, you put a number in. Why not a person? Why not prorate based on hours? You know what I'm getting? If you did work 39 hours, you'd get part-time. Why not do a prorate based on number of hours, and then if someone works 38 or 39 hours, they'd get almost as much, and if someone comes in for 1 hour, they wouldn't get as much. Rewarding more participation.
So we don't have any positions that I'm aware of, even within DPW, that would be set up in almost a per diem way. So it would either be they would be hired for a 24-hour-a-week position as a curator for the gatehouses, or they would be hired for a 20-hour position consistently, and that they'd be salaried then at that rate.
Then 24, well,
Right.
without reducing the fraction, 24/40 is see what I'm getting.
So, I mean, it's a lot of paperwork though, Mark. I mean, I understand.
No, it's
Something like
calculated.
that. I mean, but everyone's going to be different. It's like, hey, we got some lump sums here. Here's the checks we're cutting. Here's how many checks we're cutting. Here's what they're getting.
Yeah, the idea was.
I'm okay with that, but I mean, I just got to put for 38 years I've had this, they put a number rather than a percentage, and I always wondered why.
I mean, we've been doing this Christmas bonuses for ever since I've been on
Yeah.
the council. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I really don't want to put a percentage on it.
That's fine, this is not a hill I want to die on, I just had to make my pitch.
I personally am okay with going up to 2,000 for that, but make the motion. I guess we'll see if anybody seconds it.
All right, well, I'm gonna make a motion, I don't know if there's other conversation though.
I believe that there should be an increase, but somebody working 24 hours versus somebody working 40 hours
Yeah.
shouldn't be a third less.
Right.
I
So that was going to be my comment as
a,
well.
a somewhat equivalent. So if we want to increase it, I think that we need to increase it twice.
I'd rather see,
Both numbers, 4, 2, 1. Or no?
What do you mean
That's
by
still-
four?
4,000 for the police, 2,000 for the full-time, in-house.
1,000 for part-time. Is that what you were thinking more or no?
Were you okay with the 4,000 in the police department?
Yeah, I was fine with that unless you want to see more.
See-
We always want to see
Oh my
more, but then
goodness.
we do more. But I'm thinking 4,000 for the police is fine, but maybe 1,500
That's what
for
I was
full-time
gonna
and
say.
maybe 750 for part-time.
I actually would be, I prefer seeing a greater delta between the full-time staff and the police. So I would be more in favor of, and at the same time increasing the full-time staff to 1,500. So I'm gonna make that motion, and then we'll see what happens.
All right, let's-
Okay, so I move to approve the funding request as proposed with the increase for the full-time premium pay, full-time staff premium pay to be increased from 1,000 to 1,500, and the part-time premium pay, which would be anything less than full-time, I'm going to actually recommend that be 1,000.
So 1,500 and 1,000.
Yes, or
I thought it was 750.
yeah, 750 does make more sense.
Is
And
it?
that is what we
I know
said.
I put
No,
words
that's
in
what I
my-
said, and I didn't say that in my motion. So let me redo this. I make a motion to approve the.
Withdraw your original.
I would like to withdraw my original motion, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the funding request as proposed with the exception of an increase for part-time funding for premium pay, part-time staff premium pay to increase from 500 to 750, and for full-time, an increase in premium pay as suggested from 1,000 to 1,500.
I'll second that.
So I'd like to amend that motion
Okay,
and have the COVID-19 removed from the policy.
thank you, sir. Good call.
So,
Okay, so we'll call for a vote on that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
can we discuss a little more?
Sure, absolutely.
So I just want to remind the council, I guess, that the staff really, I'm sure they spend enough time on this to figure out that this seems pretty fair. But I mean, it's kind of like we're undermining the staff. So
Well, the staff representative is sitting here. What do you have to say, sir?
Again, the modifications that you're talking about from, I guess from a fiscal impact are going to be pretty minor. So
Okay.
I'm comfortable with the increases that were discussed.
I had the inside track on that with a conversation we had about the budget, but
And maybe the other comment about it for the public to understand is that, I mean, it is the specialized funding. We received a total of about $3 million. And what we're talking, plus, and what we're talking about of an increase is, you know, probably a few $1,000s altogether by going to this 4,000, 1,500, and 750. So in the grand scheme of things, we're talking about, when we get back to percentage points, very small percentage points as we're contemplating. Now, I don't think that this small increase is going to erode any of the other things we're thinking about doing with the funding. So I would just throw that out for the public.
I would like to point out to the public too that this is one of the things that was first earmarked for this money was for frontline workers. So I'd also like to amend your motion one more time and say the end of 2023 calendar year.
fiscal
Calendar.
calendar. Okay, good. So we've got it. I do have it there. Thank you.
Right.
Yes. Okay, so everybody understands the motion, and it's been seconded. So do I have to repeat it?
Man, please don't.
For time to pause, I'm giving a chance for more conversation. Okay, all in favor Aye. And that's unanimous. So the American Rescue Plan Act funding allocation has been passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. And returning to the agenda here, the next item of new business is the report on our strategic planning. And that brings me to here. So the members of the Town Council and myself met on March 12th, 2022, right here in this room for a fun-filled 4+ hours to discuss our priorities, our plans and priorities for the coming fiscal year. The Town Council held a half-day strategic planning session. The attached report, which is available to our council and has, I'm sure, been reviewed prior to the meeting, has been attached. Each priority was categorized under a corresponding goal. The purpose of providing the report is to ensure that the information contained is accurate so that it can be used to help guide funding in the upcoming fiscal year 23 budget. And I would like to make one further comment with respect to my review of the report. I found it to be very easy to follow, very comprehensive and reflective of our 4.5 hours of discussion and hard work. So thank you to staff, to Joe for doing that. And does anybody have any questions, or would you like Joe to maybe even talk more about this, maybe for the public's sake? Yeah. Anything else you'd like to add, Joe?
Really, again, the meat of the document just kind of goes over exactly what was discussed during the session, and then when you go to the, let's just call it the attachment or the appendix that talks about each goal and then categorizes each of those categories. As we work through each of those projects, obviously the boxes will get filled in. So if you see right now, like most of, other than the project title, there's nothing else there. So once we approve this particular plan, and those priorities are officially set, we'll start assigning responsibilities and start filling in the update pieces. And then, at least once a quarter, we'll provide an updated copy of this to council so you can kind of see how how we're making progress on each of those priorities as they're progressing.
Excellent.
So again, that's really, again, this is the first time we've had a strategic plan kind of laid out like this. It does kind of follow with what our CIP shows and also what's included in our comprehensive plan. So again, we're trying to keep all of these somewhat similar and kind of following the same path.
And just for public as well, I'd like to just read like the titles of each section, just so people kind of know where our heads are at with respect to the objectives, the goals and objectives. One of them is economic development, which includes growth and land use. One of them is quality of life, image and identity. The next topic is, or next goal is accessibility and connectivity. And again, under each of these are projects that are named to fit that description. And then environmental stewardship. And finally, fiscal integrity. So the details of that are spelled out in the report that Joe's provided, if anybody has any comments further.
Yeah, just one other comment that's further is that this obviously does not, there's more projects that are out there than just these, and this is more for the public than any of us. And what this is essentially a prioritization document to help us plan in order to actually start doing the projects. The idea is that we would come back, we would have additional discussion after some of these projects are completed, and then we would continue to do other projects in a prioritized way, in a similar sort of way. The other thing is that some of these projects will require public hearings, and so there will be opportunities for the public to comment on, what we should be doing as we move forward. So I would just throw those out there as well.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Joe, can I make a comment or question first? Will this be on our town website?
Yes.
Okay. And with that said, there's projects on here that were prioritized. So our priority is to certain projects, not necessarily leaving out the ones that didn't get major
Highly ranked.
Correct. So at least you still kept that on there so we can track it and then we can move it up as projects get completed.
Correct.
Yes. Thank you. That's good guidance for anyone looking at the report. Mm-hmm. Any other comments from the council?
So Joe, this is basically just going to be 1 year. We'll come back and do another thing again and see what we've accomplished and then set new priorities for the next year.
That's right. So again, the strategic plan and capital improvement plan are kind of looked at on a year-to-year basis. Each of them kind of project out a little bit, but every year the idea is that you'll go back and review both of these documents so that, again, you're making sure your priorities are hitting exactly where you expect them to.
Okay.
It's a little different than the comprehensive plan, which is much longer looking.
Okay. I appreciate it. It was a good report. I think, well, I'll just say the workshop was very well done. I think that's the best one we've had in town, so.
I can't believe that you remembered everything without taking notes.
It was all up on the board.
He took pictures of our sticker board. I could tell.
I did
Yeah,
that.
yeah, he cheated a little bit. Either way, well done. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm in his office when I went in for my one-on-one. They were posted everywhere.
I think that's right. Mark wasn't able to be here, so he had a one-on-one, which was special attention to Mark. So good for him. Anyone else? Any comments? Any motion to from the council to approve the 2022 strategic planning report as presented?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. All right. So Jeremiah Schofield with the motion, Mark Dyer with the second. All in favor? Aye. And that's unanimously approved. That is the strategic planning report. Thank you. Next item. The next item is for us to set a public hearing date for the Warfield Complex zoning text amendment. And I'd like to give a little bit, if I even have it here. Oh boy, let me see. Might need to pull it up.
Should get Joe on deck.
Yeah. Joe, if you could give the background. I'm pretty upset that I don't have it right in front of me, but I sure would like to share.
No problem. So again, this is a kind of a continuation of an ongoing item. So as most of you may remember, this issue was forwarded to Planning Commission on January 24th. The Planning Commission has met, I want to say at least twice regarding this particular issue, once in February, once in March. And they did make a recommendation at their April meeting recommendation to council to deny the text amendment as proposed. Before we can move forward with any action on that text amendment, there would have to be a public hearing set. Before we can advertise for that public hearing, we need to get input from council on when that date could be. There are advertising requirements that we have to hit. I want to say it's at least 15 days prior to the meeting. So the earliest it could be would be the week of May 2nd. I think we've looked at the calendar, and if we want to have it separate from a council meeting, which in all likelihood we do, just to keep it separate from a regular business meeting, staff is recommending that May 3rd be designated as the public hearing date.
So that's a Tuesday, the first Tuesday in May. That'll give the staff an opportunity to request the posting in the newspaper, which is required. It takes a good 3 days for them to put it in after we make the request, and that's why the math brings us to the first week in May.
Do you have a proposed location?
In all likelihood, it will be the middle school up the street.
So Sykesville Middle School, 7 p.m. would be the time, in keeping with all of our town meetings. I think that's good for people to have that to lean on and assume that it is 7 o'clock, so it will be. And Tuesday, May 3rd would be the location, or the date.
Would this be live streaming? Are we able to live stream it?
We are working with CMC to make sure that happens. So again, they do have the capability of doing a remote streaming like that.
So they've been asked, they've been made aware of this date, and that's feasible for them as well. Good question.
In any case, if they can't live feed, they would be able to post it after we get done hearing it.
Well,
Somehow, either on their channel or on Facebook.
One way or the other, it's going to be recorded. Whether or not it can be live streamed is maybe in question, but I don't believe it is. They used to live stream remotely from here before we had all of our fancy-dancy wiring done with all of our cameras. So I just see them setting up in that fashion at the school.
Okay.
We do not anticipate any issue with having it live streamed. Obviously, if something changes, we'll make sure we report that back to council.
Okay. And, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what happens if they pull it back, May 1st, pull back the text amendment or the zoning thing? Is there an expiration on them pulling it back?
There's not. They can withdraw the request at any time.
At any time?
Yep.
Okay. I'm anxious to hear what the public has to say about this, whether or not they pull their petition, if you want my honest opinion, but pulling it is an option for sure.
Yeah, but I want to hear the public opinion
Yeah.
too, but like if they pull it
Yeah,
and we're meeting on a text amendment that's
Sure.
unpulled, it just,
sure,
I don't want to waste anybody's time.
sure.
That's all.
Yeah, obviously, the earlier they do that, but if they choose to do that, the better, because we could put notice out that the hearing would be canceled, but
Right.
again, there's no guarantee that that's gonna happen.
I think, great.
And you're not looking for a motion on this tonight, or you're just looking if we're available for the 3rd, or are you looking for a motion?
Yeah, if you wanna make a motion to set the public hearing date,
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay,
All right, I mean, I'll make a motion to set a public hearing date at, to be determined location, but likely Sykesville Middle School at 7:00 PM on May 3rd for the Warfield text amendment.
Second,
okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Schofield, a second by President Carter.
So before we
And
vote,
before we vote, I have a couple things to say.
all right, I was
as
just going to say, has anybody consulted with Councilman Keenan and Councilman Guroff? Are they available that day?
well. Yes,
I do know Councilman Guroff is, I've not heard from Councilman Keenan yet, but
okay,
I imagine, I'm hoping it's fine.
okay,
There is a slight chance I won't be able to attend. I'm having a minor procedure done earlier in the day, and I suspect I'll be here, but I'm there, but I am just laying that out.
okay. Okay, is that enough reason to move it to Wednesday, or,
I think I'll be okay.
okay,
So I would go ahead, because we don't want this to drag on.
okay, very well, thank you. What was my thought that I wanted to say?
In all fairness, this process is gonna be a long one no matter
Exactly.
what.
Oh, of
And so if
course.
we wanna move it a day or two, I don't think that's, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think that's a super big deal. That's my personal opinion.
I agree. I don't think this is going to be quick, but I don't want to be the guy who's slowing it up. So let's go.
Okay, all right. Gosh, I forget what I was going to say.
I might lose my quarter.
No, it's not your fault.
I just want to make sure that other council people were.
Yes, yeah, no, they definitely consulted, and I didn't realize we hadn't heard back yet from Leo, but certainly Lisa said she's available.
Well, and it will be recorded, so we can make sure we play it back for anybody that may not be able to attend in person.
Very true. Did you, while I was looking on my device here, Joe, for what I was planning on saying, did you mention the recommendation, what it was and what it was based in? I will do that. So after the Planning Commission had visited this topic on 3 occasions, as Joe mentioned, February and in March, and then most recently last Monday, they voted to recommend denial of the petition to the council. And that is what we are going to be discussing before we vote on our decision to accept or deny the petition from the Warfield Development or Warfield Developers. I have lost track of their name at this moment in time. Well, it's changed like 5 times. I don't remember. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the reason why we're coming together is to review and vote on this after the public hearing
can I
and the
ask
recommendation. Yes.
did the planning commission advise why they denied
Yes.
it?
Thank you. That is the other thing I wanted to mention. So their justification, the planning commission's justification for recommendation to the council to deny the zoning text amendment was rooted in its inconsistencies with our 2030 comprehensive plan, as well as inconsistencies with the established purpose of the planned employment center zone. So thank you, President Carter. Those were the only 2 things I wanted to say about it. And so thanks for reminding me about the second part.
And the Warfield group was given an opportunity to engage in additional conversations that
Yes.
they had at the meeting in March, which was a special meeting. They were given an opportunity to come back, and as I recall, they stated that they would plan on providing some sort of revised materials based on the conversation that we had, and there hasn't been any. And I'm asking a question just because I've been a little bit preoccupied over the last couple of weeks.
They have not provided any additional information, no.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Are we ready for a vote? All in favor of the slated date and time and location of May 3rd, Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. at the Sykesville Middle School for the public hearing on the text amendment petition from the Warfield developers.
Aye.
Okay, that's all of us. All right, so that is set. And I believe that brings us to our announcements and reports. I'll begin with those. The next meeting is scheduled for Monday, April 25th, 2022. And also want to note that we have volunteer opportunities available on the Historic District Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, Police Auxiliary, and Crossing Guard. If you are listening and intending to ask more questions about this or want to volunteer in any of these capacities, please email town@sykesville.net for more info. And that brings us to staff updates. And Craig, our trustee treasurer, is here this evening to provide us with his report. Please. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I actually have a more briefer type of presentation tonight than my usual long-winded stuff. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at the March Treasury report, which is what I'm presenting right now today. So we're at the 9-month mark, 75%. Through 9 months, we have $645K over budget, which puts us in a really excellent shape with just 3 months remaining. That will probably not stay at that level, but stay right above budget, unless we go crazy here at the last month or so. In terms of March itself, I mean, there's really not much to report on in terms of like surprises. I think it was all pretty steady. I think it was all expenses that are your normal monthly expenditures. The only one that really probably stood out maybe to you guys was in the expenses themselves, which we paid a check to WatchGuard for about $17,000, what was for the cameras, body cameras that the police department will be soon implementing. I think they were actually being programmed today or something like that, so they'll be up and running very soon. Beyond that, we're pretty straight. I don't think there's really much to say other than, I think this will be as high as it gets, obviously, 645. It's going to start coming down because I think most of the revenue pockets are pretty much extinguished. There's not too much more revenue to be derived at this point, but unfortunately, expenses are going to kick up. So it's going to probably come down from this point, but I like where we are for that to happen. So do you have any other questions at this point, or feel free to...
I like your summary. It was very succinct. Things are about to dry up. Things are about to get more expensive, but we're in good shape right now, so that's good.
Can't be overly optimistic.
Hey, Greg, I just got a couple of questions. I noticed that the volunteer fire company donation hasn't been made yet. Is it for our fiscal year, or is it for January, December?
It's our fiscal year. It's slotted to be done, obviously, before. So I'm going to probably do it here next week or so.
Okay.
Probably next week to make that donation to the
Sykesville
Fire Department.
I was going to actually make a visit over there with the check.
Oh, cool.
So that's
We'll do it this Wednesday.
perfect. Works for me.
And then the Raincliff.
It's the same as well, obviously. That
Okay.
I don't know if that's officially due in December, January. There's no really official date, I guess, in terms of when it's...
I think, well, again, just like anything else, I'm sure the sooner the better.
Yeah, well, it's going to be
From their
done.
standpoint, but-
Obviously, I'll do
I was
it
just
same time frame as the volunteer fire department. Makes sense.
historically, when have we done that? I mean,
Usually it is the first quarter of the calendar year.
Okay.
So again, it's maybe we're
Sliding
sliding a little
sorry,
bit.
man. I'm just that's really all I noticed. I was like, oh, I'm kind of surprised we haven't done that yet. That's all.
So that's pretty much some of the.
But we've been in touch with them about trash pickup
You
and
can just blame Craig.
and we'll just do that. Okay, he's good.
Stunty.
He's at the podium, so.
Any other comments or questions
Any
about the
other-
March Treasury report?
Comments or questions?
Thanks a lot, Craig.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And next, we have a special guest this evening from the Sykesville Police Department, Sergeant Sean Kilgore.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good
Evening,
afternoon.
being as it is, I am here to present the public safety report for Chief Spaulding for the time period of March the 22nd through April the 3rd. I assume that you guys all have copies of this?
Yes.
Okay. So in this time, we handled 329 calls for service, And a breakdown of those is we had 1 attempt to locate, 30 administrative duties, 1 alarm business, and then we had 1 alarm residential for the total of 2. 1 assist motorist call, 2 assist officer for backup of our own department. We had 9 assist other agency calls, 1 civil matter, 10 community policing. We had 1 courtesy transport, 1 disabled motorist, 2 follow-up investigations, 7 foot patrols, 2 house checks, 1 juvenile complaint, 1 motor vehicle accident with property damage. We attended 2 meetings, 1 open door or window. We had 1 other, 195 patrol checks, 1 public service call, 2 safety equipment repaired or sign-offs, 8 school crossing details, 2 calls for suspicious persons. We had 4 calls for suspicious situations, 1 traffic complaint general. We handled 28 traffic enforcement initiatives, 23 traffic hazards. We had 1 training, 7 vehicle maintenance calls, 1 vehicle search based on probable cause, and 1 welfare check. So having the highlights, if you guys have questions about anything in particular, I am prepared to answer them to the best of my ability.
So I wanted to say that I personally was one of these incident reports this month. My daughter, who's 19, had her first seizure event, and the police and the fire department both showed up at my house. They did an absolutely magnificent job. And I didn't know who was there because I was very occupied with the actual.
Officer Kirkner was the one that responded to your residents. Howard County Police, or I'm sorry, Howard County Fire was the ambulance on scene. But I truly can pass those remarks on to them.
Yeah, I'm very, very appreciative
It was our pleasure.
of everything that everyone did. It was a very traumatic event.
Of course.
I've since learned that most of the things that happened are normal, but they were very unnormal to me and my family, and I really appreciate everything that everyone did.
My father was actually epileptic, and in my experience to witness them is very traumatic. He had petite mal, and the other kind are grand mal, and I know grand mal are the most serious, and they are a scary thing to go through for sure. So,
Yeah.
for what it's worth, we're glad we were able to help you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
How about any questions
No,
for Sarge?
I do not.
Okay, I come through the entire report and have no questions either,
Okay.
Sarge.
So Chief Spalding asked that I just highlight 2 incidents that occurred if I would like to, and I think I do, so I'm going to do that now. Officer Kirkner, way back in December of 2021, stopped a gentleman for driving without a driver's license, among other things. That gentleman failed to appear for court, so we had a warrant for him, and Officer Darby responded to his residence on March the 26th to take him into custody, drove him to the central booking and intake facility, and dropped him off. Based on the gentleman's physical well-being and the fact that he didn't have a ride, Officer Darby hopped in the car, drove back up to central booking to pick him up, and drove him home. So we wanted to highlight that as a do-good for Officer Darby. And then the other one is actually involving Officer Kirkner, stopped a vehicle on March the 28th of this year for various traffic violations. And as part of that investigation, found that the lady's vehicle's tags were suspended. Well, this young lady was driving for Amazon to deliver packages, so Officer Kirkner pulled her in the car and drove down Gaither Road to help her finish up her deliveries as we waited for a tow. And then we were able to arrange a ride for her. So we got some packages delivered and did a good thing for everybody involved.
Thanks, Sarge.
And that was all I had.
And I believe President Carter had a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Not a question, well, yes, a question, but not pertaining to this.
Okay.
I'm going to follow up. How are the new officers doing? I
Yeah.
think this is week 2.
So it is, and we started day number 3 officially today. Officer Revelo was working day work, and it was pretty slow going for him. He got more involved today. We had a hit and run that they followed up on over the weekend We were able to look at video, identify a suspect, so we went to their house over on Slacks Road. And that is going to turn into charges, but it's also going to be a CIT referral for the mental health of that suspect. I believe she's 70 years old. And there are some pretty dire mental health needs there. So we went on the low end of charging her to get what we needed to get, but we're going to then process the CIT referral to try to get her some services because they're desperately needed. Officer Young worked the late shift Wednesday and Thursday, and we were lucky enough to get her involved with a warrant apprehension with the sheriff's office. State police gave a call out for a gentleman walking down the road that had a warrant. I found him as soon as he sees me, as soon as I talked to him. I mean, he was gone like a shot. And the younger me may have chased him for about 10 yards before I let him go. I never even got out of the car. I mean, he was just gone. So we were able to elicit assistance in setting up a perimeter. We ended up bringing in a K9. K9 tracked him. Officer Young was with PFC Kirkner on the perimeter, and we allowed her to come and take the warrant, so she got her first official lockup. Also doing great. Officer Young has been here and knows the process. Super up to date with paperwork and how to work everything. Officer Kirkner's not even having to tell her anything now, just let her do her stuff. Officer Revelo, we're bringing along a little bit because he's just unfamiliar with our process, but they're both doing great.
Wonderful.
So we're super happy to have them.
Thanks for
I'm sure
asking.
that Officer
Revelo,
Yes.
is in a shock of awareness.
Yes.
I believe this is a very pleasant surprise.
Coming from Baltimore City, correct?
He did, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
He did. And that, we're just very fortunate, and I'll just leave it at that. Very fortunate to work where we work and be around the people we are. We don't have their problems, thank goodness.
Yes.
And I'll just shut up before I get in trouble.
Anything?
I just happened to see a picture of our mayor and our chief of police in the paper, and I would like to think that we're going to have people to come and see us now that they work here in a future date.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, we will get that set up sooner than later. I will make sure that when Officer Revelo's on nights, we'll get him over here to introduce you guys, and everybody's should be familiar with Officer Young. If not, then we'll get her over here as well.
Yeah.
We want
Just a
to,
short
I know I speak for the rest of them. I don't do that normally, but in this case, I think it's safe. We appreciate you, and
Very much.
we will be appreciating them too.
Yes.
That's why we want to meet them.
Yes, that's good stuff, and I'm sure they'd be happy to come and say hello. I'll make a note and make sure that we get that going.
Thank you, Sergeant Coburn.
My pleasure.
Good deal. That brings us to council committee reports. Jeremiah, we pretty much have talked all about the planning commission.
I have nothing else to add.
Good deal. Do you have anything to share with us?
No, I do not.
Okay, and President
Nor do
Brown, wowzers.
You guys need to be at every meeting.
Councilman Dyer, anything you'd like to share with us?
Only that in the future, I think we may want to have Dr. Wack may want to speak to us, and I, for one, am looking forward to that discussion.
Do you want to let the public know who Dr. Wack is? We had such a wonderful meeting with him last week.
Well, ironically, his official title has to do with public health, but he is a true polymath. He is as well versed in technology as I can imagine him to be, as well as a physician. And his multidisciplinary knowledge is something that we can make use of and hopefully bring better broadband to Sykesville. And he, having worked on that and having many acquaintances, such as at Magic, is the perfect person to help us get what we want and in a collaborative manner.
Yes.
So,
And we'll expand upon that when the time is right and we have a bigger audience.
exactly.
Because we do hope to bring Dr. Wack before the council and present to us some opportunities that I think are at our doorstep for the upcoming years with respect to broadband. I have one announcement. April 23rd is bulk trash pickup day. That is a correction. It was originally slated for another day I'm not even going to say because that's not the right day. But it is April 23rd. And this year, what I hope to be actually a recurring annual, this will be the first time that our Department of Public Works Director, Derek Shreves, who's in the audience, is hearing this. So I normally don't announce things publicly without first speaking to directors. But I have made arrangements with Habitat for Humanity of Westminster to follow our DPW trucks with their own truck that has a lift gate on the back to snag anything that the public should put out with respect to something that would fall on the list of needs or acceptable donations for Westminster's Restore retail location, as well as their construction and home dedication projects. So this is the first time I'll be saying this, but we'll also be announcing this and advertising it, if you will, on our town's Facebook page and on my Facebook page and everywhere, Facebook page if we can. I want to get as many residents aware of the opportunity to for this win-win-win. They get to declutter their home, and the otherwise stuff bound for the landfill that we would pay tipping fees on will not go there, and someone else actually gets to use something we have no use for any longer. So I would encourage all residents to visit cchabitat.org, CC as in Carroll County, habitat.org. Check out the list of items that they can accept, as well as the list of items they cannot accept. The list of acceptable items is very long and includes basically all kinds of furniture. Any that is not torn or stained or have a horrible odor will be accepted. They accept housewares and decor, any and all appliances, even if they don't work. So online it actually says that they have to be less than 10 years old and be in good working condition. But the idea is that if you have like a washing machine that doesn't work, they will scrap metal it and take the money for that and put it towards the Habitat for Humanity program. So any and all appliances basically will be taken by Habitat for Humanity. And if for some reason it's too rusty or something, it'll still go, correct, by our Department of Public Works that will pick it up. So they also accept electronics, like our old CD players, like our Discman. You know, we all have one of those at home somewhere, just sitting around in the attic probably. They all actually also take turntables and vinyl records, lighting of all kinds, and also hand tools, power tools. So something that I just want most people to think about that we don't normally think about is the kind of stuff left over from our honey-do lists and our projects at home. You have like 6 feet left of PVC drain pipe and don't know what to do with it. Habitat for Humanity will take it. So same thing applies to extra bricks or pavers or any kind of project where you've got 100 square feet or more of flooring left over, which is only 10, 12-inch square pieces of tile. Same. So just be on the lookout for that information being shared. Pass it along to your neighbors. Check out cchabitat.org. And know that on Friday night, if the weather is calling for rain and you plan on donating a piece of furniture, have the common sense and wherewithal to either put a tarp over it securely or don't move it out until 6, have it out by 6 a.m. At the curb for us on Saturday morning. And I guess that's everything.
5 a.m.
5 a.m. I'm sorry. Be prepared to have it out by 5 a.m. And that way when the trucks come by, it'll be there and dry.
And there with that,
Yes. Yeah.
how do we prevent, if we know that we want to donate,
Yes.
we have some coffee tables,
Yes.
there are community members that this is their day that
Yes.
they go around.
Yes.
How do we say, don't take this because it's donated?
So in my opinion, if anybody wants to take anything, it's the same purpose, take it. They're not getting a donation tax write-off anyway because it's being taken in the dark of night, whether it be by Habitat for Humanity or a neighbor that likes what you don't.
Okay.
So it's a good point. But I also, the other thing is too, is if you've got something that is clearly intended to be donated, great. If it's something that is in a box and it's smaller items because it's building materials, it's a box of screws, put a label on it that says Habitat or just, some kind of label. But because the plan is for Habitat for Humanity to be, at least if we can get 2 of their trucks, if two drivers are available, they'll have 2 trucks, and there'll be one with each one of our trash trucks instead of one with and one without. But ideally, what's left behind by our DPW, if it's it'll be hopefully a way where we can communicate that so that it's picked up by the Habitat for Humanity folks.
And then I have a question for our director, Mr. Shreves, what will you not take?
Podium.
Well, there he is making his way to the podium. The one thing I didn't say, which is hard to believe because I've said a lot, is that there's a list of acceptable and not acceptable items, as I mentioned, but there's also a list of not acceptable items from the perspective of the town's collection. So if it appears on both of those that aren't acceptable lists, then don't put it out. Go ahead.
And I'm probably going to forget something, but we don't take paints or any liquid materials. Don't take any construction material, no concrete, no dirt, no yard waste. That's for another purpose. And then wood, leftover, we don't take the deck. We don't take more than 2 mattresses.
What about an old grill, gas grill? Does it need to be disassembled?
No.
But if that old grill is still functional and it just needs a propane tank, even if it's a little bit corroded, but still could be used by a family, that is something that will be taken onto the Habitat for Humanity truck.
All right.
Thank you.
What about a
If the
torn?
scavengers don't get it first.
And if it's the scavengers, yeah.
What about a torn sofa? There's no limit size for Sykesville to pick up.
Not for a torn sofa. We don't want 35 torn sofas.
Not at one location. Okay.
Yes, not at one location.
And then is this year, sometimes other people from other communities come and drop stuff off at my cul-de-sac, because I am at the cul-de-sac where you would never know who drops anything.
Yeah, please don't disclose where you live either.
I won't, but I'm wondering, will anyone be out and about to check on that, or what's the
You mean
plan?
to minimize people who don't live within the town limits bringing their stuff to your cul-de-sac? I
or
don't know.
or other places, but yeah.
The police will be out in force, making sure.
I was going to answer that, but So to answer your question, yes, sir.
Okay,
We will be visible in your area and in every other area as well.
that's great. I appreciate it when the police stop me and say, "Hey, what are you doing dropping off garbage here? I live right there." Oh, okay. That has happened. It has happened.
Very good. Well, everybody knows who Jeremiah is now, so nobody should be approaching him in that way.
It's completely fine.
And I haven't even given our town manager an opportunity to give us his update. I jumped right past.
I only want to update everybody on this Friday. Spark will be having their annual Easter egg hunt is returning to North Cooper Park. It's at 10 a.m. It is a public event, so please come one, come all. But in addition to that, last year, again, due to COVID, we did establish a new scavenger hunt. So again, this is a way to come and discover some of our other parks around town. So the hints for where particular eggs will be hidden in area parks will be released at 10 a.m. on Friday as well.
Be there with bunny ears on.
Be there with bunny ears on. And then the last thing I do want to mention is today is actually the last council meeting we will have Carrie at, when she's known as Carrie Cheney. So she will be off the next 2 weeks, during which she will be married, and everybody will have to get used to saying Kavalowski, if I said that right. So hopefully I said that about right, but Kavalowski. So we got to get used to that. So congratulations to Carrie, and again, we wish her all the happiness over the next 2 weeks, and we can't wait to have her back.
Yep.
Here.
Thank you. All right. So with that, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Councilman Grassley with the motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second by Councilman Dyer. All in favor? Aye. Motion to adjourn is passed. We are adjourned at 7:54 p.m. Thanks, everybody.
So before you all go.